Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So we have another author. You know, it's an author you've heard of before. You heard from him. He wrote a book called Final Shot, a psych and roll mystery. That's right. It's not rock and roll. It's a psych and roll. And the reason is because IRA actually has his own radio talk show. So, Ira, welcome to our show.
Hi there.
Ira Kalina.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. And you're calling in from Centerport, Long Island, New York.
That's right.
And
an hour from Manhattan.
Okay, an hour from. I just came back from visiting New York, and I took the ferry, which was absolutely wonderful, to Staten Island. That's where we were staying. I love that ferry. It's still free.
Yes, it's a great view coming in from the ferry.
Yeah, it really is. Well, let's just get into your book. Do you have plans now? We talked about possibly having this made into it could be a movie. It could be a TV series. What do you think?
Well, I wrote a screenplay, and I submitted it actually to a contest. It's called the Big Break Contest for screenwriters. And we'll see. I think it works perfectly. It's a terrific... The book itself is very visual, so when you read it, you could actually see that it could be a movie. And because there's a lot of action, there's adventure, there's love, there's dramatic scenes. So, yeah, it could be a movie. As far as it being a television movie, that kind of thing, or a series, it's possible to make it into a series, actually, where this would be the pilot. The first mystery would be the pilot, but that many other mysteries would occur that it would involve Asia Connolly, who is the love interest and the FBI agent who is Ike Miller's love interest. And, it could be a different show with a different mystery, but I haven't really thought that out yet. And when I write the second book in the series, which will be a while yet because I'm on a different project right now, we'll see how that goes, and maybe that will be, an entity into itself that could actually be either a movie or part of the series.
I was thinking about you with the big basketball tournament we just had. Wasn't that great?
With the
Cavaliers?
With the NBA?
Yeah.
The Cavaliers, yeah. Yeah.
That was really exciting, wasn't it?
It was very exciting, and, excuse me, although my team, which is the New York Knicks, they're pretty hapless. And
I know.
And the fans here are very hopeless for this hapless team. But nevertheless, it was great. LeBron James team won, and he is just an awesome basketball player.
I know. We had him here at the Heat, as you know, and, of course, it was disappointing. But I understood he wanted to go back there, and so he did what he said. At first, when he went back there, I was wondering he wasn't doing very well.
He was well. I think he kind of takes off a little bit during the regular season, meaning he doesn't give it as much of his all. He's older now, but he sure turned it on in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was really good. So, of course, you've been a basketball, I won't call you a freak, but a basketball supporter. And, of course, that's how you brought everything into your book. Why don't you tell people about that?
Well, the title is Final Shot. And what happens is that Ike Miller plays for a Division I team that gets into the finals of the NCAA tournament. And there's in that game, there's a few seconds left, and a play is called for him where he is to take the final shot. If he makes it, they win. If he misses it, they lose. So what ends up happening, I don't know if I should tell you what ends up happening, but what ends up in a way I have to. He misses the final shot, and the rest of his life from the time of that game to where we pick pick it up in the book a few years later, he's looking for redemption for his failure. And so a lot of the story, the underlying story, is redemption for a failure, and also to make sense of something that happened on the weekend when he was in that game, which is that his father, who he had been estranged from for most of his life, his father was a backup guitar player in a rock and roll band. He was always on the road. But his father was also hooked on heroin, and what ends up happening is his father gets killed in a drug bust gone wrong on the weekend of the NCAA championship game. So Ike is playing with that in the background. And so the final shot that he misses has more meaning than actually just missing a shot. It pertains to things that have now happened in his family, and he goes on a quest to learn what were his family secrets, because there were many.
What I really loved was his grandfather. That was just so special, wasn't it?
That's right. The relationship with his grandfather, and he learns a lot about what happened through his grandfather. And his grandfather was a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp. And his grandfather actually raised him in loco parentis. He was like a father to him, and supported him in all the things that he did, including basketball, and then later in his career as a psychologist and a radio psychologist. But his grandfather, and his mother's father, his paternal grandfather, who's deceased, had held a very, very deep secret that he learns about that actually puts Ike's life in jeopardy.
We don't have to tell anyone about that one, what it is, though. We're going to keep as a secret.
I'm not going to say any more about that.
That's okay. But it, he had an interesting life, and so I don't think I asked you this before. Did your family have anything to do with the Holocaust?
Yes, my father was a survivor of one of the camps, and my mother managed to survive in hiding and with a lot of help and luck. She managed to get through the war.
No, I guess I did ask you that. Now I recall that. So did your mother talk freely about that? She was so young when this happened.
No, when we were growing up, no. We didn't know a lot. We got little bits and pieces from the both of them. But when we were older, we learned more. And my mother was also interviewed by Steven Spielberg's project, where he had someone interview for the record, to keep record of the lives of survivors. They would go and interview the survivors that were still alive, and my mother was one of the people who were interviewed. And she told her story, and I watched the tape of that, and I learned things, of course, that she had never said to me before.
Oh, that's very nice. And so, that was special for you, I am sure. I just wanted to say that now, and as an author, you'd appreciate that, it seems like many of the Holocaust survivors are coming out of the woodwork for us here in South Florida, where before we didn't get many books, but now I almost get a book a week from someone who wants, for us to review the book. And next month, let's see, July's issue, I will have someone, very interesting story, but I had someone in June. I guess it's because they know they're not going to live that much longer, and they want to get that, that story out.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yeah. Actually, what I'm interested in as a subject is not so much, it's not that I'm not interested in survivors' lives, I am, and what they went through, but I'm interested in what happened after the war, the lives they led afterwards, and how it affected their children. And that's part of what went on in this book, in Final Shot. And my next book, which is story that's about a missing music star who disappears is also about the settings, the feeling, the experiences of young people growing up after the war who were children of survivors, and what happened to them, and what happened. For example, I was born in a displaced persons camp, a convalescence camp in Germany, in Bavaria, right after the war.
Huh.
Yeah, I was, in 1946. And there's a whole story. There's stories about that, about what life was like for the people, what the struggle they went through to normalize their lives after the war. So the book that I'm currently working on is called Whatever Happened to Sammy Spann. And it's a very interesting story about two friends, one of whom I mentioned earlier is a music star, a rock star, actually. And his friend Martin, Lefty Press, is a journalist who is asked by Sammy's sister Ellen to help find out what happened to her brother who's been missing for 2 years. They haven't figured out, the police haven't found out if he's alive or dead. And so starts a mystery that leads to the discovery of what happened to this man, and also to the discovery of what happened to his family right after the war. Hope that sounds interesting.
Yeah, but I've seen this happening before, and people are always searching. Then that happens. People can't believe it, and they're so hopeful they'll find someone living today somewhere who is a family member.
Oh, of course, yeah, that does happen. Right.
Well, I want to tell you about a movie. I don't know if you got to see it. I just did a little review. I made an error in it. I'm going to have to redo it in the July issue. Did you get to see the movie Remember?
No.
You must see it.
I've heard about it.
Christopher Plummer plays in it. I have to tell you, you especially will love this.
No, I haven't seen it, but yeah.
Please do.
I've
you can actually get online. I think you can see a little bit of the trailer, but I had to review it, and oh my goodness, it is just amazing. I gave it to someone, or I would have sent it to you. I gave it to one of our other Holocaust authors, and she just couldn't believe it. It's very powerful. You especially, because it is a mystery. So I'm just throwing that to you.
I would love, I would love to. Definitely, would love to see that. Yeah.
If you can do it. But what you said, of course, is very true. And I've run into a lot of adults whose parents did not tell them about their feelings about the Holocaust. They knew that their family was in the Holocaust, and just lately, they may have gotten, in fact, on one of my shows, the doctor was a plastic surgeon who was my guest, and his father, who was a surgeon, was in the Holocaust, had never talked to him before, but somehow, on my show, he did. And there were tears.
That's great.
Yeah, it was.
That's great.
And I was also...
You serve a big purpose by doing that. It's a wonderful service that you want. In a way, you're like a therapist. Somebody comes and confesses to you the pain, the trauma that they've had.
Yeah, that is true. And, of course, we ought to talk about that you have this radio talk show that you do, which is so interesting. And, of course, you love music.
Right.
And so you've been able to mix both of those things with music. How did you get to like music so much? Did you tell me that before? I don't know. We may have different listeners now.
Honestly, I don't know if I mentioned before, but it's likely we talked about it. I think when I was a kid, I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody listened to rock and roll. I mean, Elvis, back in the 50s, but I listened to everything. I was into all kinds of music. I was into show music, I was into jazz, I was into classical music. My parents played music in the house all the time. And but I particularly liked rock and roll, and in fact, used to go out and sing with friends, and we'd write our own songs, and we'd go to Coney Island and go into one of those booths where you can make your own record, that kind of thing. And so I was really into it.
No, wait a minute. I don't know about that. What was that? What do you do?
You don't know about that?
No.
In Coney Island, in some of the amusement parks, they would have a booth where if you put in a quarter, I think it was a quarter at the time, that's probably $10. You could sit in the booth and record something. You could record a song. You could record people talking. It didn't come out all that great. It was, like crummy vinyl that you got, but you could do that. And so we would write a song. We would go down to Coney Island, get on the train, or walk to Coney Island. We didn't live that far from it. And then go into these booths and make the record, and then play it for our friends, that kind of thing.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that was terrific, and so we were, I was really into music. I was into rock, and then in the '60s and '70s, of course, all that rock and roll music was, I was somewhat of a hippie, and I would love to listen to that music, and it was great. Still do to this day.
Right, and I'm going to be taping someone, Chris McDonald, and he is one of the finest Elvises in the country. In fact, he's the only. Do you don't know if you've heard of him, Chris McDonald?
No, I haven't heard of him.
Well, he's the one, and he'll be on my show later. He does a show, I think, twice a year down here in South Florida, but he's the only one that Graceland allows to do it there on Elvis's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and he is fantastic. He actually, well, I don't know, are you not getting a copy of Boomer Times every month? Because his ad is in there, and you get to see him.
I don't think I got the June issue.
Huh.
So
We'll
got to get somebody there to send it to me.
Yes, I'm going to do that because you'll see him, and and I don't know if he must come to New York. I don't know where else across the country he goes, but he does Memories of Elvis in concert, and he's the only they call him a tribute artist. He doesn't impersonate him. He's a tribute artist, and he has a big full production in Las Vegas style. I mean, I've been to it. He's really wonderful. He goes into the audience and gives women the roses, and he sounds, if you close your eyes, he looks just like him, too. He's really figured this all out, so, yeah.
Does he perform in Vegas?
I think so. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
we'll be in Vegas.
I don't know when. Oh, you're going to Vegas?
We'll be in Vegas in September, but if we're there and he's performing, it would be great to see it.
I have no idea. I would tell you, did you ever see Elvis?
Never saw Elvis in person. No, I saw him on television.
I saw him. Oh, I saw him in person in Miami.
Did you really?
Yeah. It was about 1956 or 7 or something like that. He was at what we call the Olympia Theater downtown Miami, and the line was all around the block. And and I know I screamed because I was hoarse when I got out. But yeah, I did see him. Well, that must have been fun. Well, now that I think about it, right, a lot of people haven't seen him, and I thought, I saw Elvis. So, okay, well, let's get back to your book. So we're looking forward to having something else come out of this, but we don't know what. You're writing a second book, and that's good, and we're hoping you're going to be able to do something else. Let me introduce you again. My guest is Ira Kalina, Kalina. He is a PhD, and in real life, he's a psychologist with an online radio advice and music show, and you can catch that at PsychnRoll radio.com, right? That's right. Psych and Roll. That's right. And the Psych and Roll Mystery Series, that's what he's going to be doing a series on, and he lives in Long Island. He's married. He has 2 grown sons, and he's having a lot of fun, aren't you? I am. I mean, writing is definitely a kick. Now, when you are a psychologist and you're doing your work, do you get ideas for stories from that? Of course, you can't tell any of your patients, but... if I get ideas, they come in not immediately, and they come in a different form at another time. Something will come up out of my unconscious mind,
when I'm just daydreaming or exercising, and then, and then when I look at it more closely, I realize that maybe this was related to someone I had worked with. I just got an idea the other day, actually, from, I can't really talk about it now, but I wrote it down, and it might, be the opening to a story that I write later. But it would only be a part of a story. It wouldn't be the whole story. But yeah, from time to time, I mean, I once went to a psychic who told me that I have lots of stories to write. That for years I was busy doing one thing, but now I had lots of stories to write. And so it was time for me to get those stories out. She didn't know I had already written the book.
So she didn't know you at all. You went in there just for fun.
She didn't know me at all, and she said I had a lot of stories to write without knowing about the book.
Maybe you just look so intelligent.
Huh?
Maybe you just
look intelligent.
Right.
Yeah, I walked in. She said, "This guy's a writer. I'm going to pick on that one." So that.
Well, no, it's but I think a lot of people have stories to tell, but that's where it stops. Some people don't have the ability. They don't take the time. They're not possessed as you are.
Well, I have a colleague who wrote a book called "Every Person's Life is Worth a Novel."
Oh, that's good. I tell that to people. Right. I do. I tell that to people because even though they say, well, who's going to buy it? I said, it doesn't matter. Get it out. You never know. It will be there, and it's something that never existed before, and put it out there. And they are very happy after that. In fact, my husband has written this book, the Air Force Cowboy, and maybe every month he sells a couple, and that's a couple of them. Maybe it's because someone was in World War II and they wanted, and their father or someone was, in the Air Force, and the other day he even started reading it back himself. He said, "Gee, I didn't even remember writing all this." Is that how it is for you sometimes?
For me, writing is, and I was going to just say this to you about what you're saying, that people, everybody has something they could write about. What's really rewarding about writing is that one can get into a creative process that taps into a lot of emotion and to their unconscious mind. And the release of that is so satisfying. And the ability to create characters and plot and story and tension and love, all of those things, is incredibly satisfying. And if people have the mind to do that or the desire to do that and they follow up and do it, there's just such a feeling of being in touch with oneself when they do that. So it's a very important process. If people, like you said, a lot of people aren't willing to do it, but if you are, it's a great thing.
Can it be, I have to assume it's cathartic. It's catharsis, right?
It's very cathartic. It's exactly right. It's very cathartic. And it's also the creative aspect of it. It's like if you write a poem and you read it and you enjoy doing it, you go, wow, that's really great. You feel so good about it. It's like creating, especially a novel, you're creating characters. They're your children. It's like they become like your family. And as a writer, you have a lot of power to make them happy, to make them sad, to kill them, to make them love. It's a powerful position to be in. So you can create your own little world to do that.
So getting down to the nuts and bolts, do you sit down at a computer and just start typing? Do you have an outline? How do you do this?
For the book I'm writing now, I don't have an outline. I have a series of thoughts and a developmental chart, like the way I want things to go. I guess you could call that an outline. But I just look at it from time to time to see if I'm covering things. Once I sit down, I just sit down and let it flow in whatever way that it does. Sometimes it flows really easily, and other times it does not, and when it's not, I get up and I do something else. A lot of my ideas and a lot of the scenes that I write come when I'm exercising or walking or just before falling asleep, taking a nap or something like that. So that's where it all comes from. But I sit down and it flows, and when it flows, I could sit for hours and write, 10, 12, 15 pages sometimes only 3 or 4 pages. Of course, that's always a very initial draft, and I go back. And what I've learned also is when I edit myself, that's extremely satisfying because, I make things flow and make it clearer, cleaner, the text much better. And when you have it the way you really want it, that's really good. So it's a process.
Do you work with a writers group?
I still am part of a school in the city called the Writers Studio. I've attended classes there, and I work with one of their teachers right now as a consultant. And she gets drafts of my work and critiques it, and I work with that and to make it better. So I do work with people. I don't work in a vacuum by myself. I think it's very hard to be a writer and not get feedback about your work. You just kind of get lost in it, and sometimes you don't see contradictions or errors in what you've written or things that you say that might not be truthful. Somebody might pick that up and help you with that. And of course, it's good to have an editor. Everybody should have an editor, because an editor objectively looks at where you're missing your commas and your quotations and make sure your sentence structure is correct and you're not writing clumsy things. So you really do need to consult with people in order to write.
And and the cover, of course, is important. We talked about this before. So your next book, you got to think about the cover, or you probably have.
Well, no, I haven't, and I won't until I finish the book. Because I'm not even sure yet how the book is ending, and that might the way the ending goes may also inform the cover that I put together.
Of course.
Yeah, Well, so I don't know yet how it's going.
But Ira, I'm going to stay on your wavelength, and we're going to keep coming back to you and see what's new. And we thank you so much. We loved it. Final Shot, a psych and roll mystery by Ira KALINA. Go get it. And I'm going to get back to Amazon, see if I can do it. If not, I'm going to get it on Facebook or at least something. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you so much. Bye, Ira.